Hey there, anything else? Today we're going to be working on a video that actually someone asked me to do because I mentioned it in another video for introducing D&D item stuff. But as you can see here, I've got some skinny minis. I've got what would be a small, what would be a medium, what would be a large. That's pretty much what I deal with normally. But this is a skinny mini base. And while the skinny minis themselves are great, the bases are terrible. There is a Kickstarter coming out. I think it's over now. Sorry, I should have filmed this video sooner, but there was not enough table space for me to make it. But as you can see, this one's a little damaged. I've only used it twice and it's damaged. The very first skinny mini base that I used, I didn't lay it flat when I went to put a skinny mini on it to stand it up. And the base just shattered in half instantly. This one I've probably used twice. So what I'm saying here is I'm making a video here to tell you guys how to make your own skinny mini bases because the current skinny mini bases are terrible and they will break. Really important thing to note is that the skinny mini bases have 3 slots. You only need the middle slot for a skinny mini base. You don't need the top ones. The top and bottom ones are for show. I don't know if that leads to them being structurally unsound, but you only need the middle slot. I've got all the tools here that you could need to make your own skinny mini bases. The cool thing about the skinny minis is that all the parts of the actual skinny minis that go into the base are the same size, so you only need to make like one hole. You never really have to measure them again. Personally, I haven't gotten any skinny minis that require a base size larger than large, so this video is going to focus on making bases for skinny minis that are up to medium, so tiny, small, medium, which I have these two as the example of right now, and then large. Technically, you could make this guy one space. He could be medium too if you wanted to, but I'm considering it a dire wolf, therefore it's large. Remember, the large is the 4 squares on a 1-inch grid. We're going to work on that. Really, all the tools you technically need are here. I've got some extra tools that my friends gave me tips on how to include, like to make this job easier for myself. So you're going to want to grab what I like to do. You could do this with cardboard if you wanted, or a bunch of cardstock. But what I like to use is sticky back foam. So this is a small sheet. You can get huge packs of it like this for real cheap. I actually went on eBay and somebody just happened to be selling 2 of these, and this is pretty much all. I will never run out of this stuff. Like, there's no way I'm going to run out of it. It's super cheap. Remember though that when you're looking to buy some of this, it is not adhesive foam sheets. That is not the name. They are actually called sticky back foam sheets, probably because they're intended for like children's arts and crafts. Adhesive is too big a word, I guess. I don't know why, but they're sticky back foam sheets. That slowed me down when I was getting them, for sure. Other than that, these are extra there to make the job easier. Really all you need are a pencil, something to make the base out of, and either a box cutter or an X-Acto. You could probably do it with a regular knife too, but for me I like to use the box cutter. The X-Acto is probably better for cutting the circles out, but the box cutter is easier for making the actual standee base. Now, that being said, there are other ways to do this. If you have a 3D printer, for example, you can 3D print the base layer to use. The simplest way to do this, obviously, is to go out and buy a 1-inch hole circle punch. You use that. It pops out discs that come out looking like this. This is actually 2 discs in one because I'm not gonna lie to you, I filmed this video earlier, or I thought I did. I forgot to hit record like an idiot. But this is 2 pieces, a purple and a blue. And because they're sticky back, remove the back, stick them together. This is the easiest way to do it. It's not the only way to do it, but the easiest way to do it is to take 2 and stick them together. Now, what you can do, this is a 2-inch hole punch for your large creatures. It's way easier. Otherwise, as you can see here, I've marked out an outline. What I was originally doing before my friends turned me on to 1-inch and 2-inch circle punches was I would take a base that already existed and I would trace the outline and then cut that out. But since you've got these, you can just pop them out. Remember that tiny, small and medium creatures all fit into one square on a 1-inch grid. So you can use this for all your tiny, small, and medium creatures. But if you have a tiny or a small creature, a lot of the time what you want to do is either you can pop this out and then cut around it to make it smaller, or you can just trace something smaller. And to be fair, you don't necessarily need, I have many that I've already popped out. You don't necessarily need a perfect circle. Like, it could be any shape as long as there's enough to stand up. And in addition to that, like with these two, you could pop out 2 1-inch circles or the same size circle, doesn't matter, and then put them on top. You could do that. You don't necessarily have to. What I like to do is, because I had so much extra left over, is I would take, like, say this portion here, I would cut that out and then put it on top of one of them and use that as the standee portion of the base. You don't have to do that. Another thing you can do is, if you look up Kev's Lounge or Papercraft Dungeon stuff, they have bases that you can use to put your stuff on. There's also tons of other places and people who do it. I've gotten these from Itch, just an easy way to figure out where your crafts are. There's black and white bases you could download. I personally am a patron of Paper Mage on Patreon, so all the papercraft that he's got has these, and you can use them to throw on the base on the top level. You don't necessarily have to, but you can do this. Like, I have a white layer on top. You don't necessarily have to do that. It just gives them a little bit more feeling. Here's one that actually has the base done already. It's got one of Paper Mage's, like, city background tiles. You don't necessarily have to do that, but you could if you wanted to. These are already done. I'm obviously going to walk you through the simple, probably quickest way to do it. So that's what we're going to do right now. Basically, you take this, easy, simple. You remember, if you have one of these, you got to pop the bottom off so you can actually get what you want out of it. You have to turn it upside down to be able to see what you're cutting, which can get a little annoying sometimes. And also, don't miss. Wow, that was bad. I've run into trouble with this particular punch where it won't punch if I do it going in this direction. Like, upside down, it doesn't always punch correctly. That time it did, which is great. But now I've got a little bit of a gap there, which is kind of annoying, but got that now. Remember what I said, easiest way if you don't want to, or you don't have extra in weird shapes, is just to punch out another circle. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna punch out another circle, flip it upside down so you can see where you're cutting. Sometimes you have trouble cutting this way, and what you're gonna have to end up doing is flipping it over, and you might get more of a gap between, but you're pretty much good. Take this. Simplest way is take both your foam packs off. Or your foam backs off. I now have a pile of foam backs over there. Well, this isn't the... Take the cover off where the foam back is. That's where you're looking at. So there's an adhesive side. You can see it glint. You just stick these two bad boys together. There is... Like, these are all, the bottom base that goes in is the same size on all the skinny minis, as you can see here. It's the same size. So what you can do is you could get a precise measurement of this, or you can do what I do, because I'm dumb. You can take this, and essentially all you got to do is mark the start and the end of it. 1, 2. I'm using a pencil because I think pencils give me more, pencils give me a little bit more precision. And for me, precision is good. Now, when you've got this, you basically take your small cutting device and you chop out the portion of it that you don't need anymore. So, you could get the exact distance. The way a regular skinny mini base is set up is that you can put it in and there's room for it to slide back and forth. But realistically, you don't need the extra gap. So once you've got the first layer down, the reason why we put 2 is it's easier to cut through one layer like I just did, like shtip. It's easier to cut through a top layer and just take that out than it is to cut through just the single layer, because you'll probably hit whatever you're going down underneath, and I don't want to mess up this table. So if you're not afraid to mess up a table and you've got like something really hard underneath it, you could just cut that out. But the way I like to do it is this way. So I've cut my lines out. Part of the reason why I didn't do the full line, like the full area, is because I want it to be snug. So like the smaller the area I've got, the better. And that'll hold your skinny mini on the base easier. So we got that gone. Wait, one more to go. What I could have done actually is left the back on the bottom layer instead of sticking them together. Could have left the back on the bottom layer, and that way when I cut it would be fine. I wouldn't have any trouble. But essentially you're just making it so that you have a base like this. I can make this one better. There's still a little portion of it that didn't come off the top layer. Again, I always say, you know, you should have the right tools for the job. I never do though. So that's part of my problem. You could probably make this easier on yourself if you had a few other tools. But right now we've got the little bottom layer, and we can just stick this guy right in and he'll stay. You could even do this. What I was trying to say before is the reason why I like to have 2 layers is that if you cut this out from the top layer, that means it's touching the adhesive on the bottom. So it helps maintain, like, your character is stuck there. It's not going to come off. It's not going to come out. I lied, it'll come out. Normally though, what I do is I'll take this, I'll mark it here on this side, and then I'll cut out for my unit so I can have this. But it does help if there's an adhesive layer on the top. But essentially that's how you make the base. Now, for the larger bases, we're gonna pop this guy out real easy. I'll just get another purple. Excuse me. You take your 2-inch punch. There. Trying to make sure it lines up. It's kind of difficult to see where it lines up a lot of the time, but you take a guess and then you punch. I think I got that pretty good. That was a pretty good chunk. For the large ones, you don't have to cut out another 2-inch. You just need a little bit of an area here. So I could take any of my other bases that exist. I could take this. I could pop out another 1-inch like this. This one is one I actually cut out. That's why it looks weird. Always remember to cover up your blades when they're not in use because you don't want to get stabbed. So I could take this and put it on top. I'm actually going to do it the other way where it's easy peasy. I will show you. If you wanted to leave this on top, you could. If I wanted to, I could even cut out, I grabbed a 1-inch, hold on, let me grab this is supposed to be the regular large size. I could put this on here and use that to cut through. If I wanted to make that the base shape, I could do that. I could cut out, this is actually what I'm gonna do, except I forgot to bring a scissor, so we're gonna do it the simple way. This is too small. This won't be a big enough gap, so I'm not gonna do that. I will, however, use this portion. So I have this, I can make the base out of this area because realistically, you don't need it to look perfect. Your players aren't gonna really notice it, especially if you're building things, like they don't care. Normally, what I do is I would take this out. So I'm gonna cut this out and show you guys what it looks like, just so you have an idea. You could glue this portion onto the other end, but obviously it's easier if we just cut this bad boy out. Again, these aren't quite to the 2-inch size. Not totally quite, but they're gonna cover up enough of the area that it'll look good enough. And really, it's all extra dressing. You don't need any extra of these portions. They just make you feel better as a player. What I like to do is I only like to remove the white portion that I need. You don't have to do this. If I had a bigger image to use, I would just take all the white off. But I'm a fan of doing it this way, where you just trace out your image. It's my basic base. Trace that out. Cut just this portion off so that it's not extra sticky. This is actually going to be easier to get out than the last one was. There we go. Let's pop this out because this white paper level is pretty much, it's really thin, so you don't have to worry too much about it. Once you got a little bit of a grip, you can pull up, take that off, put it in your pile to recycle later. Obviously mine is not, I didn't measure it or anything, so it's a little off kilter, but bam, we've got this. Now I take the back off this, lay it down wherever I want. Boop. Try to get it as close to the middle as possible just so the dude has a place to stand. I realize I put the large guy in the medium, whatever, doesn't matter. It's all up to you guys anyway. You could, what I was doing originally was, this is the easy way. You kind of measure this portion of it. You don't need the whole thing. I showed you in the first one, you can measure that as well. Either or works, but you don't need to do the whole line. There's gonna be space left over. That's just the way it is. Now that I've got my indent, I can cut through. And I'm aiming to punch through the base design as well, so that there'll be adhesive pointed up towards my character. The X-Acto is probably a little bit easier for this. You probably can't hear it on the camera, but I'm cutting through the paper portion. I don't think I got the paper portion this time around. I did not. Did not punch it up. You don't necessarily have to, but it'll help your character stay a little more if you did punch through the paper. It's a little harder to get through. And again, I'm trying not to damage the tables. I'm trying to be as gentle as possible. Looks like I only got part of it. Again, put away your blades when you're not using them. You want to be safe. It's better to be safe than sorry. Boom. Now, as you can see, I didn't cut out enough. So we're going to make a little bit more of an indent so we know where to pop. Pop this bad boy out. Cut him out. You want it to be as snug as possible. So when you are making your lines, I like to cut closer to the inside than the outside. You don't necessarily have to do that, but that's the way I like to do it, because the more snug it is, the easier it is for your character to lay in there. This portion is probably easier with an X-Acto than a box cutter. It's also pretty dangerous for it to, be jerking around like I'm making it jerk around towards my fingers. That is unsafe. Cover your blades. You don't want to do stuff like that. Scary, very scary. But I think we're good now. Bam, I have my base. My guy will stay in it. Stays in a little better because it's actually touching the adhesive. Obviously that adhesive is gonna, wear out over time because you have your things, but I now have my skinny mini in a base, in a large base. You can fit your mediums if they're mounts in here. This is a little more difficult, so I'm gonna take him out for a second. These guys, like, to get the stupid skinny mini into the mount is sometimes so incredibly difficult, and sometimes they just slide in so gentle. When you take your skinny minis out of their plastic bases, you usually get a little bit of this. You can shave it off, crack it off if you want to. I usually don't because I'm lazy. But look, I got a skinny mini on a base. He stands up, can walk around the board however he wants. Way better than these because they will all break. Supposedly, at the end of the Kickstarter, when we get our rewards, there's going to be a new version of the Skinny Minis base. And I would imagine it literally has to be better than the current Skinny Mini base. because current Skinny Mini base, garbage. They will break. There's no way they're not going to break. Even if you are the most gentle soul on the planet, they will break sooner or later. So keep that in mind. I hate them. But the way that Skinny Minis does their business is that you order your Skinny Minis and your bases separately. I would advise, if you want to get started, which is what I did, I bought a few Skinny Mini bases to start with. I never expected the very first one that I used to break instantly. I've only used this like twice and it's already cracked to hell, so it will shatter sooner or later. And I noticed of the 5 that I've got, 2 more of them also have cracks in them. I've used them maybe once. But I knew that I could find a way to make new bases because I do the same thing for flat plastic minis. Boom. Now our Mastiff has his own stand. These guys have their own stands. And because this bottom portion is the same on all the Skinny Minis, like any base that you make for Skinny Minis, you can see I've even used the 3D printed bottoms as well. Any base that you use is going to work for all of them. So you only have to make 1 or 2, or you only have to make however many you're going to need within one encounter. You don't need to make bases for each of your minis, because you usually get like 20 in a pack, I think it is. You don't need all of them. You only need the ones you're going to use one at a time, or that will be out on the field at any given time. You don't need any extra other than that. But yeah, that is how I make my Skinny Mini bases. I just realized I put him on the Direwolf backwards. I'm going to fix that because that looks dumb. My bad. I mean, I guess you could be riding it. It could be going forward and you could be watching your flanks, I suppose. Sure, why not? But yeah, now he's on the base. That's better. Boom, done. He's got it. He's standing up. He's going to stay there. I wouldn't advise, the reason why you want them snug is I would not advise putting any like glue or adhesive in there. Because if you do that, your Skinny Mini's stuck in there forever. I mean, if you intend to use one Skinny Mini forever, sure you can, but it's not going to be good because it's not easy to store them anymore. When they're flat, super simple to store them. When they're no longer flat, not so simple. But that is essentially how I make my Skinny Minis bases. Somebody asked me in the comments on a previous video how I made them. I said I would eventually get to it. I'm sorry that it is months later, but I figure now's as good a time as any since the Skinny Minis Kickstarter is on. They're launching a whole bunch of new products. They're also launching like a subscription service, which I was like, oh, that's weird, because while I do like having a bunch of extra stuff for my adventures, for my players, like I don't want random stuff. Like, I would rather get only the stuff that I need. Oh my god, my depth perception is bad. But yeah, Skinny Mini bases, this is how I do it. There are plenty of other ways. You could use a whole bunch of other stuff for materials, but I think this is the easiest because all the materials are super cheap and it's a super simple process. Could I make it even easier if I got an exact measurement of the middle rung here? Oh, for sure. But I'm lazy, and oddly enough, in this case, it probably creates more work for myself, but whatever. You can do it too. I suggest, if you're buying Skinny Minis now before base V2 comes out, don't buy bases. Don't do it, because they're going to break. It's going to frustrate the hell out of you. You're going to be ready to do your encounter and stuff. You're going to put the mini in the base, and it's going to go gah, and just shatter in your hand. Also, they can come out kind of sharp too, so be aware of that. I would suggest making your own until V2 comes out. Sorry if this is bad for business for Skinny Minis, but your bases are terrible. So if you want to make your own Skinny Mini bases, this is how I do it. Feel free to, in the comments below, if you want to say like what your materials are, what you like to do, please feel free to do so. I would love to hear more of your stuff. You can even make it better if you like cut the extra edges off, but it doesn't matter to me or my players. They're just so excited to see new stuff on the field, and I'm excited to make new stuff for them. So yeah, I hope you guys liked what you saw. If you did, leave a like. If you want to see more content like this, sub, and I'll see you guys and gals later in the next one. Also, in the comments below, if you want me to show you my way which is almost the same process, but a little bit different at the end, for how to make bases for flat plastic minis, which are not crap, by the way. Flat plastic mini bases, I've never had one break. They're great. And they come in all sorts of weird colors. So if you have flat plastic minis, you can go buy those bases. If you have skinny mini bases, don't buy V1 bases. They're terrible. But yeah, if you want me to make a video on flat plastic mini bases, please let me know in the comments below and I'll do that too. Until next time, later y'all.